Beneath the suffocating silence of the grand hall, power clashed without blades and lives were weighed without blood. As the Mulan's challenge of war echoed across heavenly South, captives became bargaining chips, wagered battles became instruments of morale, and even nascent soul cultivators found themselves forced to choose between pride and survival. In the shadows of divine pressure and cold calculation, ancient grudges resurfaced, forbidden materials were revealed, and a single decision could tip the balance between annihilation and ascension. When war is no longer fought by armies alone, but by courage, greed, and the willingness to gamble one's life, who will dare step onto the stage? If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. The three figures slowly advanced toward the center of the great hall, stopping side by side. The towering man, clad in black robes, his features sinister and oppressive, spoke first in a voice as cold as frozen iron. "You should all know who we are. There is no need for pointless introductions. This assembly will be presided over by the three of us. Does anyone object?" The moment his words fell, a terrifying spiritual pressure erupted from his body without warning. Like an invisible tide, it swept across the entire hall, pressing down upon every cultivator present. Faces instantly paled as the dense and profound fluctuations of spiritual qi bore down on them one after another. Hanli felt his heart tremble. The power radiating from this man was astonishing. Judging from that icy demonic aura, this person could only be Old Devil Concord. Yet his appearance differed greatly from what Hanli had imagined. Rather than the image of a harmonious Bond sect elder, he more closely resembled a cultivator of the ghost spirit sect. What Hanli did not know was that each successive generation of the harmonious Bond sect's grand elder bore the same title, Old Devil Concord. Even though the black-robed giant cultivated a devilish art that had little connection to the sect itself, he had no choice but to inherit the name. At this moment, the cultivators present all keenly sensed the man's fearsome strength. Though unease stirred in their hearts, none dared to rashly challenge the authority of the three great cultivators standing before them. For a time, absolute silence engulfed the hall, as though everyone had tacitly accepted Old Devil Concord's words. Seeing this, the black-robed man spoke again, his expression unchanged. "Good. Since there are no objections, we will dispense with meaningless chatter. To speak plainly, we have little time. Earlier this morning, the Mulan sent an envoy bearing an official challenge of war. If we fail to meet their conditions, then in 7 days it will be a battle to the death." The hall instantly erupted. A challenge of war. 7 days. What conditions? The sword-bearing Taoist let out a light chuckle and calmly said, "Brother Yi speaks correctly. Before anything else, everyone should first review the Mulan's challenge of war. Only then should we discuss how to respond. Although this war has arrived earlier than expected, with the strength gathered here today, is there truly anything for us to fear from the Mulan?" His voice was not loud, yet it rang clearly in every ear, carrying with it a chilling calm that seeped straight into the heart. The commotion in the hall subsided almost instantly. Though many cultivators felt startled by this sensation, none dared speak further. Instead, someone muttered under their breath, "As expected, the great truth sect's meditative arts truly live up to their reputation." The middle-aged Taoist paid no heed to these murmurs. He casually produced a glistening red jade slip and tossed it toward an old man seated across from him. "This contains the Mulan's challenge of war. Fellow Taoist, why not take a look?" The old man was momentarily startled, but he quickly extended his spiritual sense into the jade slip. His expression darkened almost immediately. Without a word, he passed it to the cultivator beside him, whose face likewise turned unsightly after reading it. As the jade slip circulated among the cultivators, Hanli cast an appraising glance toward the sword-bearing middle-aged Taoist and the azure-robed old man beside him. The Taoist appeared to be around 40 years old, yet his skin was crystal clear and refined, his features elegant like that of a learned scholar. This man was Master Sunreach of the Great Truth Sect, one of the leaders of the Righteous Tao Alliance. As for the old man, his appearance was utterly ordinary, his clothing plain and unremarkable. However, what truly caught Hanli's attention were his fingernails, long, unnaturally sharp, and tinged with a dark purple-black hue that occasionally flickered with faint black light. This person could only be Wei Wuya, the Grand Elder of the Nine Nations Union. Sensing Hanli's gaze, Wei Wuya turned his head with a trace of surprise, then smiled faintly at him. Han Li hurriedly returned the smile, though inwardly he could not help but wonder whether Wei Wuya would still be smiling, if he knew what had transpired between Han Li and Nangong Wan. At that moment, Long Han finished reading the jade slip and passed it to Han Li, his expression unsightly. Curious after seeing the same reaction repeated again and again, Han Li quickly immersed his spiritual sense into the slip. Moments later, he withdrew it with a deep frown and silently handed it to the next cultivator. Before long, everyone in the hall had read through the challenge. Without exception, their expressions turned grim. Some even let out cold snorts once they were finished. Master Sunreach of the Great Truth Sect surveyed the room and asked with a faintly enigmatic smile, "Now that everyone has read the war challenge, what are your thoughts?" A green-robed man with a sinister expression spoke coldly. "How arrogant. They actually demand that we cede half of the heavenly South continent. Do they truly believe victory is already assured?" A plump old man narrowed his eyes and said slyly, "Indeed. Didn't someone once claim that hostilities could be ended simply by relinquishing a few lands? It's clear now the Mulan are nothing but vultures driven by greed. Perhaps there is no need for a decisive battle. If we drag things out, they may gradually be worn down." The large, tan-skinned man seated beside him slammed his hand down and said angrily, "Fellow Taoist Lu, what do you mean by that? Is it because your Thousand Illusions sect lies deep within Heavenly South that you don't care whether the rest of our sects survive? A war of attrition may mean little to you, but what about us?" Unperturbed by his fury, the plump old man replied indifferently, "I spoke with others in mind. Sects can be rebuilt after they fall, but lives once lost cannot be replaced so easily." Another cultivator sneered coldly, "You make it sound far too simple. If our nations were abandoned, why should we block the Mulan armies on behalf of your Devil Dao sects? Why not simply relocate all our sects into your state of Tianluo? That way no one would die." That's enough." The black-robed cultivator's expression darkened as he rebuked them. "The matter of a war of attrition has already been settled. There will be no further discussion. What we must now deliberate is how to deal with the Mulan spell warriors, not bicker amongst ourselves." Hearing Old Devil Concord speak, the disputing cultivators swallowed their objections and fell silent. In the cultivation world, strength alone commanded obedience. Master Sunreach then added solemnly, "In truth, there is no need for further debate. We have already reached a decision. Given the momentum of the Mulan armies and the interference of external forces, a war of attrition is simply impossible. If we do not unite the majority of Heavenly South's strength, we will be incapable of withstanding the Mulan's assault. Should the forces of a single country confront them alone, defeat would be immediate. Once finished, the Mulan would simply advance upon the next. Therefore, we must scatter their forces in battle. We cannot rely on chance." A brief wave of hushed whispers rippled through the hall before quickly dying down. Soon after, Dongmen II of the controlling spirit sect shifted his gaze and asked, "Why not allow the Mulan to reveal their tricks first? Why must we risk participating in a wagered battle and with stakes so heavy? Some of the materials they demand are things even we cannot afford to wager. And yet the Mulan, who are so impoverished, dare to propose this." Another cultivator explained, "We are well aware of this. The Mulan plains may indeed be barren, but while they lack common resources like spirit stone mines, they are rich in rare materials. There are even several materials they possess in greater abundance than we do." Dongmen too slowly nodded, his expression thoughtful. "So that is the case. Still, why are they so confident of victory in this wagered battle? Aside from late-stage nascent soul cultivators, others may also participate. Up to 10 battles, all to the death. Do they truly believe we will obediently abide by such terms? Given the cunning of those present, everyone understood that the Mulan would not propose such a risky battle without some hidden scheme." Unease quietly spread through the hall. Han Li was equally perplexed. The war challenge clearly stated that both sides would send their own forces and refrain from any underhanded methods. The cultivators involved would wager rare materials directly, and the victor could seize the loser's storage pouch on the spot. What was even more suspicious was that all 10 wagered battles were to be held simultaneously. Any defeated cultivator would be unable to flee and would die on the stage. To ensure this, the battles would take place within a sealed spatial barrier, guarded by experts from both sides to prevent interference. Regardless of whatever tricks the Mulan may be hiding, someone said this presents a tremendous opportunity for us. If we can eliminate several high-grade spell warriors before the armies clash, it would be immensely beneficial. Humph. I fear the Mulan harbor the very same intentions, another voice retorted immediately. Old Man Kwang of the Sailing Boundaries study snorted disdainfully. What is there to deliberate? If the Mulan wish to hold a wagered battle, we can simply refuse. In 7 days, we will deploy our own arrangements. Their plans will come to nothing. Master Sunreach sighed and said helplessly, Brother Kwang's words are reasonable, but regrettably we must participate in this wagered battle. And we must win. Old Man Kwang frowned deeply. What? What does Master Sunreach mean by this? Are we truly to allow ourselves to be led by the nose by the Mulan? Many of the eccentrics present nodded grimly in agreement. Master Sunreach spoke with a darkened expression, his voice low and heavy. We are well aware that this matter is riddled with suspicion. However, during their advance, the Mulan captured a great number of cultivators, most of them from the Nine Nations Union. In addition, while rendering aid, many disciples from various sects were also taken captive. According to the envoy, they currently hold nearly 1,000 prisoners. Startled, Old Man Kwang immediately exclaimed, What? Are they threatening to execute the captives if we refuse their terms? Do the Mulan truly believe we would not retaliate? Master Sunreach shook his head and replied swiftly, The envoy did not say so explicitly. However, he did mention an opportunity to rescue them. Aside from the materials wagered in each of the 10 battles, the freedom of 100 captives will also be placed on the line in every match. The eccentrics in the hall exchanged troubled glances. 1,000 cultivators were not an especially large number, and they would most likely be low-grade practitioners. In truth, their lives alone were not enough to sway anyone present. Yet if someone openly proposed abandoning them, that person would immediately become the target of scathing criticism. Although none of the great cultivators truly cared about the captives themselves, they represented sects and clans of all sizes. Many of those taken had been captured while deliberately delaying the advance of the Mulan armies. If they were abandoned, now morale would plummet. The low-grade cultivators in particular would feel utterly disheartened, and few would be willing to fight with their full strength thereafter. Inwardly, everyone cursed the Mulan for their insidious cunning. Long Han let out a sigh and said, Who would have thought these grassland savages capable of such calculation? In their past invasions, they relied almost entirely on brute force, scarcely using strategy. Yet now they scheme with such precision. This sudden change alone is enough to make one uneasy. Master Sunreach slowly swept his gaze across the hall and said solemnly, It seems everyone understands that this battle cannot be refused. Regardless of what the Mulan are plotting, we must defeat their spell warriors in these battles. Otherwise, the blow to our morale would be devastating. Moreover, these wagered battles appear to be free of overt trickery. It is far more likely that their true intentions lie elsewhere. Therefore, fellow Taoists need not worry about unexpected mishaps. Should anything seem amiss, we will personally intervene and halt the battles. Naturally, since these are battles to the death, participation will not be forced. Voluntary. When the eccentrics heard this, cold smiles flickered across their faces. Their eyes gleamed faintly as they remained silent. No one was foolish enough to volunteer immediately. Even if there were no hidden dangers, few were willing to fight to the death. After all, it took centuries of arduous cultivation to reach their current realms. None would casually gamble their lives. Han Li also remained silent. While he did not mind contributing some strength to the war effort, he had no desire to court unnecessary danger. During the battle at the Yellow Dragon Mountains, he had nearly lost his life. He had no intention of reliving such an ordeal. Seeing the prolonged silence, Old Devil Concord's expression grew increasingly sullen. He let out a cold snort, the chilling sound sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Even so, no one spoke. Master Sunreach shook his head faintly, revealing a trace of helplessness. Wei Wuya merely narrowed his eyes, remaining silent as well. Breaking the awkward stillness, Master Sunreach said, Before arriving here, we discussed this matter briefly. Since these wagered battles carry great risk, we have decided that all spoils obtained will belong solely to the victor. Does this not to some extent compensate for the danger involved? To my knowledge, many of you are lacking certain rare materials. Materials you have been unable to locate despite extensive searches. We possess some such items and are willing to use them as incentives. As he spoke, his gaze swept across the hall once more before coming to a halt on Han Li. Han Li's heart jolted and confusion flashed through his mind. The other cultivators felt much the same. Though the sword-bearing Taoist had put forth enticing conditions, none of those present took the initiative to step forward. At that moment, however, Wei Wuya suddenly turned toward Taoist's shattered soul and sent him a voice transmission. The previously despondent Taoist abruptly straightened his eyes, lighting up with unmistakable delight. His lips moved silently as he conversed with Wei Wuya through voice transmission. Moments later, hesitation flickered across Taoist's shattered soul's face. At the same time, Devil Concord also sent out a voice transmission. Devil Cloudpart had appeared aloof ever since entering the hall, but upon hearing his sect's grand elder speak, his expression darkened at once. A deep frown formed between his brows. Whatever was said clearly displeased him. After pondering for a long moment, Taoist's shattered soul finally spoke aloud. "Very well. As long as you uphold what was agreed upon, I am willing to brave danger this once." The hall erupted in shock. Immediately afterward, Devil Cloudpart said, "Since fellow Taoist shattered soul is participating, I will join as well. It would be truly regrettable to let such rare materials slip away." Though he wore a cold smile, a faint trace of anger lingered on his face. The other cultivators exchanged glances, their hearts unsettled. Though no one spoke, they were deeply shaken. Whatever had persuaded those two had clearly unsettled everyone present. As expected, the three great cultivators began sending voice transmissions to others in the hall one after another. Most cultivators, whether reluctantly or eagerly, agreed to participate in the wagered battles. Only two shook their heads coldly and refused. Watching this unfold, countless thoughts churned through Han Li's mind. At that moment, however, Master Sunreach's voice reached his ear. "Fellow Taoist Han, I heard that you are currently searching for a large quantity of auric essence. Is this true?" Han Li's heart pounded violently. It was no surprise that Master Sunreach knew his request through the Heavenly Tao Alliance had never been a secret. Calming himself, Han Li replied, "That is correct. I require auric essence to refine a magic treasure. Could it be that fellow Taoist Sunreach possesses a large amount?" Master Sunreach chuckled warmly. "Fellow Taoist Han is quite perceptive. Fellow Taoist Wei and I have each obtained a substantial portion of auric essence. The quantity should be more than sufficient for your needs. Are you interested?" After a brief moment of contemplation, Han Li replied non-committally, "I would like to first examine the auric essence before deciding whether to fight." Master Sunreach smiled and nodded. In such a short span of time, 5 cultivators, including Han Li, had agreed to participate. Like him, they had all deliberated carefully before consenting. Though hesitant, their responses satisfied Master Sunreach. He promptly ceased the voice transmissions and began arranging strategies to deal with the Mulan armies. Despite the hall buzzing with discussion about spell formation tools and countering the Mulan's troublesome spirit technique formations, Han Li's thoughts had already drifted elsewhere toward the auric essence. To be honest, he had long been dissatisfied with the power of his bamboo cloudswarm swords. It was not that they were inferior compared to those of his peers, but rather that they fell short against the formidable opponents he continued to encounter. Against weaker foes, he had no need to use them at all. The azure essence sword streaks were more than sufficient. Yet when facing towering adversaries, his flying swords felt woefully inadequate. However, with the final recorded divine ability of the azure essence sword art, the aureate sword formation, his bamboo cloudswarm swords could contend with a late nascent soul cultivator for a time, even if he could only unleash a fraction of the formation's full might. As for the Heaven Void Cauldron, he had yet to personally witness its true power. Having only heard Silvermoon's endless praise, doubt had begun to take root in his heart. The aureate sword formation was a supreme divine ability, one that could allow him to firmly establish himself in the cultivation world. To utilize it, he required an enormous quantity of auric essence. Yet participating in a wagered battle for it was no trivial matter. After some thought, Han Li resolved to first see how much auric essence was being offered before deciding. If it was enough to refine the aureate formation, he might well agree. So long as his opponent was not one of the Mulan divine sages, he felt he had little to fear. Even if the Mulan attempted some form of trickery during the battles, he was confident he could escape the insignificant spatial barrier using his thunderstorm wings and purple apex flames. With this decision made, Han Li's heart settled once more, and he refocused on the ongoing discussion. The meeting continued for nearly 2 hours under Master Sunreach's guidance. Old Devil Concord occasionally interjected, while Wei Wuya remained completely silent throughout. One noteworthy detail was how both Master Sunreach and Devil Concord held Long Han in particularly high regard. Whenever matters concerning the Heavenly Tao Alliance arose, they invariably sought his opinion. It seemed true that Long Han, together with his wife, possessed strength sufficient to stand alongside the three great cultivators. As the discussion drew to a close, the cultivators who were not participating in the wagered battles were assigned specific duties. Master Sunreach then formally concluded the meeting, bidding everyone farewell and urging them to prepare for what lay ahead. However, three cultivators remained behind Han Li among them. The other two were Devil Cloudpart and a stunning woman with a pale, bloodless complexion. Like Han Li, she had remained silent throughout the earlier discussions. Once most of the others had departed, Old Devil Concord spoke coldly, his face devoid of expression. "Junior Marshal Brother, follow me. There is something I must say to you in private." Without waiting for a reply, he turned and strode out of the hall, never once looking back. Devil Cloudpart's gaze flickered uncertainly. After a brief hesitation, he silently followed. From the way he moved, it was clear that he harbored a deep-seated fear toward the towering black-robed man. Only after Devil Concord and Devil Cloudpart had left did Master Sunreach turn to Han Li and the pale woman. "Fellow Taoists Han and Bai," he said with a gentle smile, "let us speak frankly. Why not first examine the items you desire, and then decide whether you are willing to participate in the wagered battles? This humble Taoist understands your concerns. After all, this undertaking is exceedingly dangerous. Without sufficient compensation, no one would willingly risk their life. That said, regardless of whether the items meet your expectations, I sincerely hope the two of you will agree to participate." Wei Wuya stood quietly to the side, his hands clasped behind his back, calmly scrutinizing the two of them. Upon hearing Master Sunreach's words, Han Li did not respond. Instead, the stunning pale woman frowned and spoke coldly. "I walk a solitary path. Whether the Mulan invade Heavenly South or Heavenly South invades the Mulan has nothing to do with me. Had it not been for your message regarding that item, I would never have emerged from seclusion. Let us make things clear from the outset. If what you possess does not satisfy me, I will leave without hesitation." Master Sunreach showed no anger at her sharp tone. Instead, he replied warmly, "Fellow Taoist Bai, there is no need to be so severe. Although I may have erred somewhat in the past, everything I did was ultimately for your benefit." The woman's expression darkened at once. She let out a cold snort. "I alone will judge whether it was a mistake. Enough of the past. Bring out the item." Though Han Li maintained a calm exterior, his heart was shaken. This woman, surnamed Bai, clearly shared an unresolved grievance with Master Sunreach, perhaps even one rooted in a past entanglement. Seeing her anger, Master Sunreach could only sigh helplessly. He reached into his storage pouch and produced a white jade box. The box appeared utterly ordinary, as though carved from common jade. Yet the instant it emerged, the temperature of the entire hall plummeted. It was as if winter itself had descended. Even Han Li, long accustomed to extreme conditions, felt a chill seep into his bones. The woman surnamed Bai, however, revealed a flicker of excitement upon sensing the frigid aura. Without a word, Master Sunreach handed the jade box to her. She accepted it and opened it, deliberately angling it so Han Li could also see. Inside lay two translucent crystalline cocoons. Wisps of icy chi drifted from them, causing Han Li to furrow his brows. They were clearly the cocoons of ice frost silkworms, exotic insects, ranked at the very bottom of the insect classification lists. Though these insects were not especially formidable in combat, they possessed a unique divine ability of extraordinary rarity. If this woman truly required them, there was a strong chance she would agree to fight. Yet to Han Li's surprise, her expression immediately turned unsightly. "Why are they cocoons? These are not fully grown." Master Sunreach replied calmly, "Fellow Taoist Bai, these ice frost silkworms were discovered over 100 meters deep within solid ice. They are no ordinary specimens, they are top-grade monarch silkworms. Examine them with your spiritual sense. You will find that they are anything but ordinary." Monarch silkworms. Her expression shifted. Doubtfully, she swept her spiritual sense over the cocoons. Moments later, the tension in her face eased. "How about it?" Master Sunreach asked. "Even in their cocooned state, these monarch silkworms should be more than sufficient for your needs." After a brief hesitation, the woman closed the box and put it away. "With these, I will participate in the wagered battle." Master Sunreach let out a breath of relief and smiled. Excellent. With fellow Taoist Bai's frost cloud arts, those insignificant spell warriors will fall in a single exchange. The woman merely said coldly, I will take my leave, and turned to exit the hall. Master Sunreach watched her go with a bitter smile, shaking his head slightly. Wei Wuya chuckled softly at the sight but said nothing. Once she had departed, Master Sunreach turned his attention fully to Han Li. Fellow Taoist Han, he asked with a smile, exactly how much auric essence do you require? Han Li answered without pretense. A great deal. The more the better. Naturally, I understand the value of auric essence. As long as you two fellow Taoists can provide it, I will compensate you fairly. I will not allow either of you to suffer a loss. Master Sunreach laughed. From your words, it seems fellow Taoist Han possesses considerable wealth. Still, at our level, there are very few items capable of tempting fellow Taoist Wei and myself. Otherwise, we would not have relinquished so many worldly possessions for this war. Han Li smiled faintly and did not respond. Wei Wuya, however, suddenly sighed and spoke. Fellow Taoist Sunreach, your words are bold, but you should remember that fellow Taoist Han escaped from a Mulan divine sage while only at early nascent soul stage. He is anything but ordinary. Master Sunreach chuckled. Haha, my apologies. Regardless of what fellow Taoist Han intends to trade, why not first examine the auric essence? If he truly possesses something that can move us, we will have no objection trading all of it. As he spoke, he reached into his storage pouch. A white light flashed, and 3 golden chunks of radiant stone appeared in his palm. Without hesitation, he handed them all to Han Li. Han Li's heart pounded as he received them. His gaze burned with barely concealed desire. 3 chunks, 1 large, 2 small, were unmistakably auric essence. The largest was roughly walnut-sized, comparable to the piece once auctioned at the trade meet. The 2 smaller ones were about half that size. This amount was sufficient to refine dozens of flying swords. Yet it still fell short of what Han Li truly desired. Though his expression remained composed, a trace of disappointment flickered in his eyes. Master Sunreach noticed this and felt inwardly astonished. Just how much auric essence does this man want? He glanced at Wei Wuya. Wei Wuya, having noticed Han Li's expression, calmly reached into his sleeve and withdrew a fist-sized chunk of auric essence. The instant Han Li saw it, delight surged through his heart. Though still insufficient to refine all 72 flying swords, combined with the other pieces, it would likely suffice for at least half. 36 swords empowered by the swordlight reflection technique would be enough to form a small-scale aureate sword formation. Suppressing his excitement, Han Li caught the auric essence tossed to him. After carefully inspecting it, he said, although this may be all the auric essence you possess, it remains slightly insufficient. However, it will suffice for me to participate in the wagered battle. Please examine these items and see if they meet your expectations. He put away the auric essence, then produced 2 jade boxes of differing colors, handing one to Wei Wuya and the other to Master Sunreach. They opened the boxes in turn. Wei Wuya weighed his box thoughtfully before opening it first. Inside one were numerous scarlet scales, each no larger than a fingernail. In the other lay a jet-black tortoise shell, roughly the size of a fist. Both late nascent soul cultivators were visibly shaken. What is this? Demon beast materials. Han Li explained calmly, that is correct. Fellow Taoist Wei holds the scales of a grade 8 venomous flood dragon. As for fellow Taoist Sunreach, that is the shell of a grade 8 demon tortoise. I would not dare claim these items are heaven-defying treasures, but metamorphosed demon beast materials of this grade are exceedingly rare in Heavenly South. They should be more than sufficient to trade for auric essence. Though his tone was even, Han Li spoke with quiet confidence. Grade 8 demon beast materials were extraordinarily difficult to obtain even in the scattered star seas. Though countless cultivators ventured into the outer star seas, few ever encountered demon beasts of such rank, let alone succeeded in killing one. In Heavenly South, Grade 6 and Grade 7 demon beasts were exterminated the moment they appeared. None were allowed to survive long enough to advance to Grade 8. Aside from a few regions tightly controlled by major sects, the land was utterly devoid of high-grade demon beasts. Master Sunreach quickly regained his composure, but Wei Wuya could not restrain himself. The scales of a Grade 8 venomous flood dragon, he exclaimed in delight. Han Li paused briefly before recalling that Wei Wuya cultivated venom-based arts. Given the terrifying toxicity of a venomous flood dragon, These scales likely held profound value for him. As Han Li hesitated, Wei Wuya had already extended his fingers, gently turning one of the crimson scales. His gaze sharpened as he examined it carefully, lost in thought. Master Sunreach was surprised by Wei Wuya's lapse in composure. After a brief moment, he smiled at Han Li and said, "Haha, it seems fellow Taoist Han's offering is greatly to Brother Wei's liking. I too am quite interested in the tortoise shell. If these truly are grade 8 demon materials, then this exchange is entirely fair. They are exceptional materials for refining defensive magic treasures." Even so, while Master Sunreach believed Han Li's words, he found it difficult to accept that an early nascent soul cultivator could acquire such materials. Naturally, he would need to personally verify the authenticity of the tortoise shell. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.